Okay, all right. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see this. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to go over part 12 of Samuel. And unlike our last sessions where part 12 was usually the last, we're going to have to extend this portion of our study due to the fact that Samuel 1 covered a lot of things and a lot of different individuals with a lot of their own separate narratives that did connect. They all connected nonetheless. But much like Judges, where we can kind of breeze through things a little bit more quickly and focus on the notable narratives, Samuel has a lot of significance. So, as you remember, we discussed Ephraim and his wives, right? Peninnah and Hannah, right? So we had Ephraim, which we're familiar with, Hannah. We discussed Eli. We discussed his two sons. And then we began to talk about Samuel. After Samuel, of course, we had King David and Saul. Well, first Saul. Whoopsies. Spoiler alert. We first talked about Saul, King Saul, and then talking about David. We have Saul's son Jonathan. So as you can tell, there's a lot of moving parts in this narrative. And as we come to a close, we really just want to pay special attention to the signs, right? So we're really thinking about the lessons and making sure we take our time with learning what this book has to say, because it is very significant in really the foundations of the Israelite community and the Bible in general. So let's go ahead and get into a quick quote, and I will put it at the top just to kind of, spark some interest here as to what I am talking about in the beginning of each session. Okay, so this is also from St. Mark. It's going to sound very familiar because we did also and lose his own. And we did talk about this before. And what did we say when we spoke about this? We talked about power, we talked about rulership, and how it might appeal to a king, someone of, a king's stature or a king in reality, to go ahead and conquer the world, right? To take over their people. But what does that profit if you lose your soul in the meantime? And I am experiencing some Wi-Fi issues, so I apologize if it's cutting out at all. Let me go ahead and write this out. Oh goodness, Prophet a man. Okay, sorry, it took a second. I was fidgeting with the things here, just making sure the Wi-Fi. Okay, so for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? We understand what this means now because we've discussed it. And as I was writing, of course, I think of what we said last time, which was, it sounds frightening, right? It sounds scary to lose your own soul. It sounds scary. So we are going to have sympathy and this losing your own soul portion, and we will talk about what exactly that would mean or what that is later on. Maybe it will come up. But again, this is just to keep in mind about the sin, I guess you could say, the sin of power and the sin of greed, right? So that's really what we're focusing about, and we are going to pay extra time because we know that he's afflicted, and we know that he's being afflicted by the spirit, the evil spirit of God. So I don't want to completely bash him. I know I was kind of talking not so kindly of him in the last few videos. You know, I was making it seem like he's going insane and all of this stuff. But we do know that the paranoia was not something out of thin air. When you're genuinely paranoid or you're genuinely worried or scared, it is coming from somewhere. You know, it's not just some kind of unreasonable feeling that you're getting. It is rooted in something, and we know that that feeling that he had against David was for sure rooted against something, because he knew, based off of what Samuel told him, that, you know, somebody would replace him, and it was his own intuition that led him to believe it was David, and he is, you know, extremely correct with that. So we can definitely kind of move away from blaming Saul for his behavior, but of course we do want to keep in mind that his plots to murder David and things like that, that is seen as a sin, and we do know that. So that's why that harshness is implored. Let's go ahead and get into chapter 23. We're just going to finish that out from last time, and then into chapter 24. It says, Saul was going along one side of the mountain, and David and his men were on the other side, hurrying to get away from Saul. As Saul and his forces were closing in on David and his men to capture them, a messenger came to Saul, saying, "Come quickly, the Philistines are raiding the land." After Saul returned from pursuing... Okay, we're going to actually pause, I'm sorry. So we know that, you know, Saul is in hot pursuit of David. He's chasing him all around, you know, trying to capture him. And it says here, a messenger came to Saul and told him to come back and retreat because the Philistines were being attacked. This is a true thing that happened, and some may confuse the word messenger with that of an angel or something of that nature, but no, it was just a messenger that was a part of the king's consort, right? And I mean, in a way, he seems like he did an angelic thing, saving David essentially, but it was not actually an angel that came down or anything like that. This is again going to expose kind of the theme that's been going on in this section especially, and we'll talk about that in a second, but keep that in mind, you know. Anyways, after Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, "David is in the desert of En Gedi." So Saul took 3,000 able young men from all Israel and set out to look for David and his men near the crags of the wild goats. So here, this is notable because he militarizes the young men of Israel. And technically David did the same thing, right? He took his family and militarized them. But we can learn about what was told as a prophecy, or what was told as a warning from God to Samuel about what it would be like to be a king and a ruler. And again, this is not too different from what was happening with the judges, but really something different with the king is it has that absolute authority to go ahead and say, you know, you're coming with me and I will militarize, you know, this group of people. And people really don't have a choice or an option to say no or to bow out of it. Maybe they did, but, you know, usually with a king, you're kind of demanded to go along with things. As so much with the Israelites beforehand, in David's sense, and maybe some of the senses of judges, it was more of a voluntary action, right, that people were implored. or inspired to go into the military. But that's just, again, just reflecting on a little bit of a warning here. And it says here, Saul was told that David is in the desert of En Gedi. So this is something we're remembering, because we have people whispering in both David's and Saul's ears. Keep that in mind, people whispering. Then here, Saul came to the sheep pens along the way. A cave was there, and Saul went in to relieve himself. David and his men were far back in the cave. The men said to David, "This is the day the Lord spoke of when he said to you, 'I will give your enemy into your hands, for you to deal with as you wish.'" He said to the men, "The Lord forbid that I should do such thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lay my hand on him, for he is the anointed of the Lord." With these words, David sharply rebuked the men and did not allow them to attack Saul. And Saul left the cave and went on his way. So here David spares Saul's life, as we can read. Something again, people are whispering in David's ear, go on, kill him. And just like people are whispering and supporting Saul to go on and attack. So this is something too, right? This is why staying connected with the Lord and going to the Lord first for all things is the most important, because otherwise you have people on all sides of you going and telling you things and opinions and decision making that you should go ahead and do. But first and foremost, it needs to be done through the Lord. So this is why, especially during a spiritual time like this month, when we have Ramadan and we have Eid and we have Passover, this is why something like this is important, right? Because essentially what this symbolizes for me is to block out things coming from around me, right? Human intention, and to really just stay connected and focused on the Lord and only the Lord. Really, closeness is what we're after. Connection is what we're after. So this is what this, if you're curious, symbolizes for me. It's just really like that close connection that I've been trying to explain to you guys and get you to understand, but this is what that symbolizes, right? Kind of blocking out the opinions of others. Just focusing on the Lord, truly, really and truly. So again, I thought this would be maybe a good time to talk about why it's good to protect your humility and things like that, but also to just spend time with the Lord, focus on the Lord himself. Don't listen to so many other things and other opinions. And here David corrects the men, which is good. He's like, yes, the Lord, this is my master. And he's quoting something that was written in a religious text, right? The Lord does forbid you to do such a thing to your master. Not that he was a slave, but he was a servant, right? So it's kind of the same thing going on here. Anyways, when David finished saying this, Saul asked, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" And he wept aloud. He says, "You are more righteous than I," he said. "You have treated me well, but I have treated you badly. I know that you will surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hands. Now swear to me by the Lord that you will not kill off my descendants or wipe out my name from my father's family." So here, Saul, much in his exhaustion and his emotion, is appealing to David, and he's saying, "I'm sorry. I apologize for doing this. I don't know what's going on with me." And again, keep in mind that he's afflicted, right? He was chosen and he was anointed by the Lord, and now the Lord is nudging him out. And the way that he's reacting, it's very painful to him, because once you're built up with all this ego and all this self-assurity and all this confidence from the Lord, and he's trying to pull you away, that can be a very, very painful feeling, and I can understand, how Saul is feeling. But here he's apologizing. Here he's accepting. He knows that David's going to be king. The fear that he has and what's propelling all this emotion for Saul is that he does not want his descendants to wipe out, and he does not want the name from his father's family to go away. And this is understandable, because we remember the Benjamites. We remember how we almost did not allow them to procreate. That was a decision point within the Israelites. So there's a lot of heavy-set emotion behind Saul and his feelings, and we could understand and have some compassion for why he's acting the way he's acting. We're not agreeing that it is the right way to act or it's the right thing to do, but we can start to understand the pain and the torment that he really, truly is going through. So let's go ahead and just leave it at that, and keep the things that we've talked about in mind. I'm ending it there, right, because I said what I needed to say here, and we're going to discuss what's next. I don't know what's next. I know what's happening at the very end, but I don't know the events leading up to that. So let's end it here. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.